All right, everybody, good afternoon. It is my absolute pleasure to be with you today. I am so grateful for your attendance this afternoon in this workshop. And yes, it is being recorded. Yes, it will be available to you later, and the slides will be made available as well. Let me begin with a quick introduction of myself and then also kind of the plan for the next hour of our time together or so. If anybody doesn't know me, my name is Michael. I serve as the online education faculty coordinator. And when I'm not doing that sort of work, I'm also teaching anthropology at the college as well. And again, I'm here to talk to you today about substantive interaction, really defining what that is, what it's all about, and why should we care, and what do we do now? We have quite a bit to explore together today. As we go through the presentation, please, you are welcome to engage in the chat. I'll be sure to keep that open and be attentive to it. I'm also going to make sure to designate some time at the end of the session just for questions. And at that point, I'm actually going to stop the recording so that we can have more of a free-flowing conversation at the end of the slides today. I will be toggling between my slides and Canvas to actually demonstrate some of the skills that you can apply in your own online courses today. So if at any point I'm talking about something that is clearly not visible to you all on the screen, please don't hesitate to unmute, throw it in the chat, let me know that something is off of the screen share, because I am juggling a few things simultaneously, but I'm going to do my best for you today. All right. So, yeah, see you all signing in. Yes. Yes, Tiffany, we are ready for the spring break, but let's learn a little bit more first. Let's jump in. Today, I have three primary objectives for this workshop, and I believe they are all realistically attainable for each and every one of you here. After the workshop, I expect that you should all be able to define substantive interaction, both in policy and in practice. So what it looks like in an actual online classroom. Also, I believe you'll be able to articulate why this is important. There's a lot of reasons why. I'm going to stick with two primary reasons why. And then thirdly, identify and apply key elements of substantive interaction to your online courses. I'm going to give you some tips and practices that you can log off of the Zoom at 2 o'clock and you can implement in your course by 2:30. In fact, I urge you to do that. If you see something in this workshop that excites you, that interests you, play around, try it out, and see how it works in your online class. And I'd love to hear how it goes for you personally. So at this point, you might be asking yourself, what is substantive interaction? Now, I know some of you were with me on Flex Day, so this might be a little bit of a review for you, and that's wonderful. But if you weren't there on Flex Day, or if you need a little bit of a refresher, let me define this in a couple of different ways. According to policy, and by policy, I'm referring to Title V, accreditation standards, and also Long Beach City College distance education policy, we have the following definition. It is engaging students in teaching, learning, and assessment with at least two of the following things: providing direct instruction, assessing or providing feedback, providing information or responding to questions about the content of a course, and facilitating a group discussion regarding the content of a course. And again, I'm going to give you these slides at the end of today. I do try and reference where this information is coming from. This is not like the Michael Robertson idea of what is a fantastic online course. This comes to us through multiple bodies and policies of why we should focus on these things. But sometimes, for myself, I like to think of the policy in the real world. So let's take a look at substantive interaction in reality, or in practice, if you will. And similar definition, but remember, we're focusing on at least two of the following items. Zoom instruction if you teach synchronously, or grading and feedback in the Canvas gradebook or SpeedGrader, offering content and answering questions, and facilitating discussions, perhaps in Canvas discussion forums. So again, that when I think about the policy, I always think, well, how do I do that in my online courses? Here's how. And keep in mind, the bottom line of substantive interaction is to make sure that we, the instructors, are present and involved in students' learning. We're not just posting content and assignments and saying, here you go, students, you're on your own. We are active engagers in the online learning space. That is absolutely essential. So, with that note, I would like to launch a quick poll. And I created this earlier. It should be here. Yes, here we go. The question should be appearing on your screen right now. Of the 4 criteria of substantive interaction, which one do you most often do in your online courses? And I know picking one might be hard, but do your best. Try and pick one that you do most often. Take a moment. Okay, we're about 65, 70% participation rate. Good. No wrong answer here. Everything is anonymous. Take 8 more seconds. Okay, and time. I'm going to call it at 89% participation. Thank you for humoring me on that. Let's take a quick look. You should be able to see the results. And let's see, the first one, live Zoom instruction, about 12%. Grading and feedback, about 58%, more than half of us responded there as our most frequent one. Next down, 19% offering content and answering questions in Canvas modules and communication tools. And then lastly, 12% facilitating discussions in Canvas discussion forums. So we're going to talk about each and every one of these things. And one of my recommendations to you is this. If you're finding yourself kind of struggling to think of, well, what do I do? What does that look like in my class? Then this is absolutely the workshop for you. And again, I want to give you some practical tips on what you can do today to put these things into practice. So at this point, you might be asking yourself, okay, well, we know what substantive interaction is now, but so what? Like, what's the point of all this? Well, there's a couple of things I want to share with you. Really, 2 main rationale, as I mentioned earlier. The first of which, this is how we do right by our online students. Effective substantive interaction is shown to strongly support student success in our online classes and our face-to-face classes too, by the way. But sometimes that will look a little different compared to an asynchronous or synchronous online course. The second big reason is that the Accrediting Commission for Community and Junior Colleges, or ACCJC, is looking very closely at the evidence of substantive interaction in our online courses. So let's take a look at those. Let's break those down just a little bit, and then we'll get to some examples of what it looks like. All right, rationale number 1, online student success. Here's what we're finding. Students can tell. Students are very perceptive when their online instructor is engaged and responsive and supportive. Maybe we could do this for just a moment. Can y'all raise your Zoom hand if you have taken an online course? Raise your Zoom hand or your physical hand if you are, yep, okay. Or you do thumb up, good. Bunch of us raising our hands. Yep, I have as well. Good. And we know what it feels like to be on one side of the computer and being a little unsure if anyone is on the other side of that computer. Are they getting my messages? Are they looking at my submissions? I don't hear much. So students can tell, we can tell. And at least for me and many students on this campus who I've spoken to, that is directly proportionate to how much commitment we are willing to put into a class. That means if students can tell that their instructor is present and engaged and responsive, then they are more likely to invest their time and effort into succeeding and learning in that class. And the same is opposite, or the same is true of the opposite, where students don't know who their teacher is, don't know what they look like or sound like, or like to do online, then their investment drops. So timely and substantive feedback of student performance allows students a chance to improve, right? It's not just this, when I was in college, and I know many of you as well, like this midterm paper and exam, and that's your whole grade. Timely feedback and substantive feedback allows our students to actually grow throughout the duration from the beginning to the end of the course and have multiple opportunities to show that growth. And then, of course, facilitating discussions can build a sense of online community, much like our discussions do when we're in a face-to-face classroom, right? It's not just these to-do list, busy work exercises. Facilitating and moderating effective discussions bring our students closer together. And that, as we all can attest to in a physical classroom, really helps facilitate the learning process. So what I urge you to think about, if you don't already do it, is to survey your students anonymously. And there's many tutorials on my YouTube channel and also in the Canvas comments on how to do this, how to put one of these together. But when you survey your students, I want you to pay very close attention. What do they say about substantive interaction? Now, students aren't going to know what substantive interaction means, but they do know what it looks like and what it feels like. For example, and I'm not going to read through these one by one, but these are real Long Beach City College student responses to an anonymous survey that all touch on the concept of substantive interaction. Okay, the instructor being available, the instructors interacting, not just a machine churning out assignments. Feel comfortable leaving comments on their work. Okay, instructor feels approachable and not intimidating. Okay? Approachable and available. Feedback is provided in a timely manner. Look for these themes in either your contractual evaluation responses from students or something that you administer to them on your own in your Canvas shell. And again, make this as kind of your self-assessment of where you are at currently in terms of substantive interaction. The second rationale, equally as important, I would argue, comes down to accreditation. And if that's a new concept to you, I've got a crash course right here. Accreditation deserves much more than one slide. But in short, it is a peer review process that ensures colleges provide quality programs and services. And essentially what's happening is that we, Long Beach City College, we are being checked to ensure that we are serving our students effectively. And this is important for a number of reasons, including but not limited to financial aid qualifications, ensuring universities accept our coursework when students transfer, and making sure that employers trust the skills that our students learn at Long Beach City College. Being accredited, it's really, in many ways, our reputation. So that organization, ACCJC, has put together distance education standards. And it just so happens that a few years from now, in 2028, 2029, an accreditation peer review team is going to visit Long Beach City College and review at least 50 randomly selected Canvas courses. And when they receive these 50 randomly selected Canvas courses, they will be reviewing it with a quality continuum rubric for distance education. And again, all these links and images are clickable. So when you receive the slides, when I'm finished, you will be able to look at these documents on your own time. I strongly suggest you do so if you're having trouble sleeping later. But I'm going to go through some of the highlights on what this is really all about and what it means to you as online instructors. But here's the kicker. If substantive interaction is not clearly happening in at least 85% of our courses, then we risk a compliance issue. I should have bolded that. We do not want this. We don't want that at all. We want them to say, yep, Long Beach City College is doing this thing great. Check, you're good to go. Spoiler alert, we are already seeing community colleges up and down California receiving core inquiries and compliance requirements on this specific item. But we have until 2028 to prepare. So I'm not worried. In fact, I'm confident that not only do instructors at Long Beach City College already do this, but we have the capacity and capability to dial it up and even improve what we are already doing in terms of substantive interaction. So now you might be thinking, I understand the importance of this, but now what do I do? That's what I'm thinking, or that's what I was thinking, 6 months ago when I learned about all of this, this past summer when it came out. So now what? Well, I'm suggesting an online teaching mission for every single one of us online instructors in our classrooms. Every single one of us has a responsibility to take steps and ensure that substantive interaction is clearly happening on a regular basis. Yes, this is how we most effectively serve our online students. And yes, this is also how we ensure our accreditors see the required evidence of our work. Again, those two main rationale for the so what behind this topic. So what I want to do now is do a little bit of toggling between my slides here and Canvas and showing you exactly what these practices can look like in an actual online class. So to begin, I'm going to start with criterion 1, providing direct instruction. And that rubric that I showed you just the cover of a few minutes ago, it provides the following scale, where for providing direct instruction, there are 4 different categories on this criterion, ranging from initial to emerging to developed and highly developed. In full disclosure, anywhere along this continuum qualifies as compliance to our accreditors. That said, I am of the mind that we should really strive for developed and highly developed, because that's how we do best by our students, by pushing what we are already doing, always improving. As I see in the chat, there is always room for improvement. Yes, no matter you've been teaching online for 2 years or for 20 years, there's always something new you can learn and try. So again, I'm not going to really go too much in depth of each of these criteria. You can take a look at those in detail on your own. But I do want to get into some of the nitty gritty, some of the practicalities of what this can look like in your course. So in practice, providing direct instruction. What does that actually look like? Now, again, in our survey from a few minutes ago, only a few of us responded that you frequently use Zoom for direct instruction, that only a few of us frequently teach synchronous classes, and that's okay. Maybe it's something you want to try. maybe something you did back in like 2021 and you said never again. Okay. It's worth knowing, what your teaching modality preferences, but also what the student needs might be. But I want to give you some clarifications on what this can actually look like and what this should look like. First and foremost, synchronous courses have required Zoom meetings and they are noted in the schedule of classes. So office hours do not count. Having optional Zoom hours in the evening time, or those do not count. In terms of substantive interaction for accreditation purposes, we're looking at synchronous courses with scheduled meetings. And they should employ the Tech Connect Zoom tool in your Canvas shell. And my tip, and I have a few tips throughout these slides, is to schedule these meetings for the entire semester so they show on the Canvas course calendar. Let me pause. Let me pause and toggle. I think I could toggle. Yes, I can. You should be seeing Canvas right now. If you're not, please unmute and yell at me. But this is a sample Canvas course. No real students in here. If you are teaching synchronously, I urge you, we should be using Tech Connect Zoom 1.3, which is available in every online course, by the way, for office hours or other meetings or other things, to schedule those Zoom meetings. And this takes all of 30 seconds to schedule. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click schedule a new meeting. And I'm going to say, this is my class meeting. Make that a touch larger for you all. And let's say this is, yeah, okay, I'll just do it from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. And let's say this is a Monday, Wednesday class. So it repeats weekly every Monday and Wednesday. And it ends in early June. And I always like to enable the waiting room. And I'm done. Click on save. And now, when I go back home to that same course, my class meetings with the Zoom link pop up in the class calendar for the entire semester. I mean, that took me less than a minute to set this up. This is especially helpful because if you have students who happen to be using the Canvas app on their phone, they will get a little ping with these coming up calendar reminders. Oh, it's time for me to log in to my Zoom class. And the calendar is notoriously slow. Here we go. Yeah, so here's my class meetings. A student would just click on the class meeting tomorrow, click on the Zoom link, and they'll join, just like you were able to join this webinar. So very, very simple and quick way. Again, whether you're doing a synchronous class or whether you're talking about your weekly office hour, this is an ideal way to schedule it so students know where to find you. In addition to setting them up in your Canvas course, instead of just emailing or announcing like, hey, here's a link, come join. Some required skills that I highly recommend before you commit to synchronous online teaching include things like Zoom screen sharing, making sure that the sound is enabled so students can hear the sound, monitoring the Zoom chat, creating, launching, and sharing Zoom polls like I did a few minutes ago, using breakout rooms in Zoom for group work, and using external tools for interaction. Okay, so again, if you're not sure how to do that, we have webinars and we have courses and trainings on how to do these things. And then you can go to your department head and dean and say, hey, I'd like to try teaching a synchronous course. And you can teach on Zoom. Okay, that's a definite possibility with some added skills. I also want you to think about a Zoom lesson plan. If we just log into Zoom, turn on the camera, and start lecturing at the students, it's probably not going to land very well. And it's also not going to, really meet the standards for direct instruction. Instead, I urge you, develop a lesson plan comparable to what you might do in a face-to-face classroom, including things like welcome, class announcements, questions, introductions, learning objectives of the day, a mini lecture for like 20 minutes where you share your slides and talk about some things, then getting into a discussion in breakout rooms, followed by a return to a main room to come back together and share, and then maybe another mini lecture, followed by a conclusion for the class. And that's a 90-minute class right there. That's an hour and a half scheduled out. And again, you're the content experts. So it's up to you to decide, obviously, the content of what's happening in this time and the activities during this time. But I urge you, go into your Zoom class with a plan, with a lesson plan written down or typed down. Like even me, I literally have like notes, handwritten notes for the plan for this workshop. So I urge you, do the same thing if you're teaching online. That is a strong, essential element of direct instruction. Oh, and I did want to mention, this is a training link to something called the Teach Online Seminar 4.0 for synchronous classes. It is I'll just open it. It is approved for 6 hours of flex credit. Here we go. And you can self-enroll today and learn all about teaching synchronously online. So if that's something that interests you, I urge you to click the link in the slides, self-enroll, and I will be reviewing your submissions on your deliverables in that training. Alrighty. Criterion number two. Number two, assess and provide feedback. Again, drawing from that rubric from ACCJC, we have 4 different classifications here from initial to highly developed on what this feedback can and should look like. And again, just to give you a sample of what this looks like, I added some additional language to this. Again, this next slide is my words of what this can look like, starting with the initial rating, where we're coming into the grade book and we're leaving maybe a numeric grade and a note of good job along with the submission, if anything at all. The next thing, okay, emerging, getting a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more specific, followed by developed, using a few more different tools on how students can improve their individual performance. And then lastly, highly developed, where you have the most sophisticated and most detailed and highest employment of tools to give that assessment feedback to our students. So I want to give you some examples of what this will look like. And luckily, Canvas offers us a lot of different ways that we can provide feedback, including numeric scores, rubrics, rubric comments, assignment comments, audiovisual feedback. I am not saying you have to do all of these in every single assignment. I certainly do not. But I'm very strategic in how I pick and choose which I use where. And I'll tell you, every one of my assignments uses at least 2 of these feedback types in every single assignment. One thing I might recommend to you, I'm not here to create more work for anybody. When you leave typed comments for students, save those. Save them in a Word document or copy paste them somewhere, because you can always copy and paste them again and then modify them based on an individual student's performance. Like, you do not have to retype every single comment. I am all for copy paste and then modify based on how the student did. You do not need to do every single thing from scratch. So let me again toggle back to Canvas and show you what this can look like. Let me close this up. Okay, here we are. Yes, so this is my current live online course in linguistic anthropology. And so I do have actual students in here. So I'm going to be very strategic with what I do and do not share. I have redacted the student names from what I'm about to share with you, and I got student consents that it's okay to show their little profile picture because half of them are like a cat anyway. But this is my linguistic anthropology class, and upon login, this is an 8-week course, so it's fairly simple, where every week has a navigation link to take students to that thing. But I'm going to go ahead and skip over to the modules to give you an overview of what the course looks like from a student perspective, where every week is its own module, where there's a combination of content pages, assignments, discussions, and then some prompts on what students are supposed to read or view or do, and so on, and due date reminders as well. This is a Sunday to Sunday course, so the modules open on Sundays, and the work is also due on a Sunday. And so you get a little sense for how students navigate through, where they go through sequentially. Every unit begins with an objectives and goals page, and then gets into some of the content. And just as a reference, the content is a combination of typed writing from me, videos from me and other creators as well, and then also other visual aids to support their learning, external links that takes them to other things that I might show them in a physical classroom. So I do my best to replicate as much of the content as possible in my online class as I do in a face-to-face class. But when it comes to feedback, okay, one thing I like to do is offer, here we go, make that a touch larger for you, is offer different kinds of assignments. So for example, this assignment here is one about phonetics or phonology, the sounds of language. And students are asked to use the International Phonetic Alphabets to solve a handful of problems in 3 different sections. And I let them know when they can expect some feedback and what kind of feedback they can expect, which includes a numbered score, a gradebook comment, and an assignment rubric rating. So in practice, what does that look like for me? Well, I'm going to click on SpeedGrader and show you. All right, again, I hid the student names. You will see the submission on the left and then my grading section on the right. And in fact, I'm going to go to, yeah, this is test student. I know because there's no grade here. I'm just going to give you a sample. So first thing I do is I open my rubric, which I have written ahead of time. I urge you to do so as well. And then I rank how they score based on their performance. I can also leave a comment within the rubric itself. You know, comment here and let them know how they performed, or maybe a little bit more rationale for why I score them the way that I did. This one is just for my SLOs, which aren't worth any points. So I'll put meet expectations and then click on, oh, I can also leave a comment there as well. And I can click on save. And that automatically populates a numeric score in the gradebook for them. But even further, I like to leave assignment comments here. And you'll see that on some of the other students. Well, all right, and these are actual students here where I let them know they did great. I see one small error, and then I point out which number and which specific one they missed and why they missed it. Some students, yeah, excellent work. They didn't miss any, so kudos to them. Other students might need a little bit more guidance. Overall, really good, just a few mistakes. Here's some of the errors that I noticed. Again, this directed feedback, because this topic comes up again in the course. So this is the opportunity for them to try it, make mistakes, learn from the mistakes, and perform well on their quiz that assesses the same material, okay? So I'm able to give that really specific feedback based on how they are performing. Even going back to student view. Okay, this is the sample student, or this test student. Again, you can type in here, as I just showed you. You can also click this button to record a video. Okay, there I am. Oh my goodness, you see the real background behind me. How scary. And you can turn off the camera if you want to and just leave an audio comment. I often leave mine on for students. And you can even screen capture and say, I want to capture the entire screen. And then you can do a screen recording and you can walk them through what they may have missed, and you can provide the audio, you can do the voiceover, and those recorded videos do get captioned through Canvas. And that usually takes just a couple of hours for those captions to occur, depending on the length of the video, usually not terribly long. And then it will appear for students here where they can view, listen to your feedback. Here's another example. This is an assignment where I ask my students to transcribe. They use linguistic transcription. So I begin by giving them a template, and then they have to choose one video of the 3 I'm providing to transcribe, just 1 minute. 1 minute doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually a lot in linguistic transcription. And then I refer them back to their lesson on how to actually do this thing, what techniques they should use, and how to do that. And then again, what kind of feedback they can expect. So in the speed grader, again, I've hidden the names. You'll see the submission on the left where they did their linguistic transcription, and then my scores and comments on the right. And again, this particular student 20, whoever that is, just did an amazing job. I didn't really have any constructive comments for them. Other students, okay, might have missed a few elements here. Here's one. Some suggestions for improvement. Or I take a look and I let them know, hey, okay, you can improve this. You can change that. But again, I save these. These are copy pasted and I modify them based on how the individual has performed on that particular item. We do not have to rewrite these every single time. And again, sometimes I'll give an audio comment. Again, assignments like this, most of the time I will do the numeric score, the rubric rating, and a typed comment below, okay? And again, this is how we can do the assessment and providing feedback on a student's coursework, okay? Consistently providing and frequently providing prompt, personalized, and detailed feedback on the coursework and assignments, such as written comments, detailed rubrics, audio or visual notes, and examples for improvement. Okay, let's move along. Criterion 3, providing info and responding to questions. Now, I don't usually pick favorites, but this is one of my favorite elements of substantive interaction, just by the way. Again, we've got the criteria from the rubric language, initial through highly developed, but let's get into what it actually looks like, okay? Providing info and responding to questions. I'm going to give you a very specific technique, and if you don't already use it, I'd like you to try. And if you want to try today, let me know how it goes tomorrow. But I want to share with you Canvas Studio as an ideal platform for this criterion. And I wrote out step by step. Again, you're going to get the slides later on how to do this, but I'm just going to show you how to do it because it takes all of 2 minutes. So let me swipe back, get to my course. Okay. Yes. Every module begins with an objectives and goals page. Objectives and goals page. Okay. And this one is Unit 2, where I tell students what's the subject of the week. I give them a link to contact me if and when they need help. And believe it or not, I take roll call. This is an asynchronous course. I wouldn't ordinarily take roll call, but this just made sense in terms of substantive interaction. And look, I have used Canvas Studio. That is a really awkward thumbnail, sorry. I use Canvas Studio to record a 2-minute video of myself where I'm introducing the lesson. And then at the end of the video, I ask them a question. And that question they have to answer in a comment, which is what you see below. Again, names redacted. The question this week was, if they could travel anywhere in the world, where would they go? And you see 22 comments, students jumping in, and then I come in and I do my best to reply. Okay. I respond to these. And you know why I respond? Because I have clicked this button. Subscribe to comments. Whenever a student makes a comment, Canvas Studio sends me an email and it says, hey, so-and-so student just responded. Go check. And I'll click on it. Takes me right here, and I just type a quick response, just like if a student shares something in the physical classroom. I love, love, love this tool. In addition to roll call questions, I do use Canvas Studio for more detailed mini lectures. So for example, this page features a video. It's about, okay, this one's about 23 minutes long, where I do a lecture and I screen share and I'm writing and I get to, show students different elements of things, and they could see me in the top right corner as I explain things. I always give them instructions on what to do. And I've, again, subscribed to the comments because this topic is complicated and I don't want my students to feel like they're on their own. So when they have a question, they ask, and then I get to reply. Okay. I mean, this is the most I've ever had students in an online class talk about phonemes, the sounds of language. Okay. They jump in here and they just add their own ideas or ask clarifying questions. And when I get that email, because I'm subscribed, then I get to respond to those questions in a very timely manner. So you say you want to try this for yourself, it just takes 2 minutes. Look, I went to Canvas. I made just a random content page. Heading here, some instructions for what students are supposed to do during your video. Then I'm going to skip a line. And then it's so nice, it's blue, to click on this icon for Canvas Studio, where Canvas Studio just opens up. There's a lot of me's. I click on Create, and I click on Studio Capture. And my camera is opened up again. I get to start the recording in 3, 2, 1. And then I get to tell my students all about this important stuff and take roll call and ask them what's their favorite color and all that good stuff. Then click on Finish when I'm done. Then I give it a title and click on Save Media. And for a 7-second video, it doesn't take very long at all. Here it is. I click on the video. I click on Embed. I click Subscribe to Comments, and I click Save. And ideally, I would click Publish as well, though I don't want my actual students to see this, so I'm not going to do that. And then, depending on the length of your video, in anywhere from 10 minutes to a half hour, the captions will be finished processing, and you could just click on these buttons to review them. Although I have found that the Canvas Studio captions are remarkably accurate. They are much more accurate than YouTube captions are. So keep that in mind in terms of accessibility. Again, how long did that take me? Like less than 2 minutes? If you haven't tried this before, try it today or tomorrow. Tomorrow's okay as well. But play around with it. Try something new. It's a wonderful engagement tool, and my students have taken to it so well. They'll ask a question, and I'll jump in there and respond, usually within a day or so, Monday through Friday. And they'll keep the conversation going even amongst themselves, which I absolutely love. Okay. Criterion 4, last but not least, facilitate discussions. Now, in our poll earlier in this workshop, facilitating discussions, I believe that was only about 12% of us. So this is something that I have personally made an intentional effort to increase the amount of facilitation I do in online discussions. And here's why. Okay, so an initial expression of this criterion is really when just, we give students the discussion forum and say, okay, class, go. And I'm not, yeah, I always think about that if I were in a physical classroom and if I just gave my in-person students a prompt and said, okay, talk about this, and I just stood kind of quietly, I wouldn't necessarily, I wouldn't be comfortable with that. At least for me, I like to walk around the classroom and kind of eavesdrop and, poke my head in and say, how's it going here? And, oh, do you have a question? And they'll call me over with the question. So I'm doing what I can to replicate a similar experience in an online class. As I work to replicate that experience for my students, I get more and more developed among these terminologies. So let me show you what that looks like in practice, facilitating the discussions. Now, we all know if you're teaching online, discussion forums are a must. That is essential. But it's not just like these meet and greet, the sky is blue, and yes, I really agree, the sky is so blue, it's so wonderful, kind of discussion forums. We got to develop things that urge them to think very critically about their student outcomes, student learning outcomes and objectives, just like we do in a face-to-face classroom. Okay, these are not busy work. These are opportunities for students to explore and connect and sometimes disagree or debate, and that's all wonderful to support their learning. Require students to respond to each other in a substantive way. Again, we shouldn't be accepting the "I agree" sort of response. Give a minimum word count. Tell them, okay, now find a student who you disagree with and respectfully share your perspective, right? We should guide that as much as we possibly can to make sure it's a worthwhile conversation. Our job is to facilitate and moderate the discussion. Think of yourself as a moderator, making sure the students are on task, correcting any misunderstandings. Here's a few suggestions I have for you, such as posing questions, proposing alternative viewpoints, connecting ideas between one student and another student, even encouraging students like, oh, I'd never thought of that before. Tell me more. The clarity and adding information. Again, if a student has a misconception and writes it in a forum and other students see it, then all your other students might have that same misconception. So that's our opportunity to jump in there and guide them to the correct conception of whatever they might be writing about. So again, one last time, coming to my class, I give a discussion forum every week. This is an 8-week long course, so once a week they have a discussion. And this particular one, I do a couple things. I like to link it to a learning outcome from the class. I ask them to read a brief article. And then I ask them to answer a few questions and then respond to at least one classmate. And as always, I articulate what kind of feedback I will provide to them. So what I've done then is I opened this in a different tab and I searched for myself and I redacted the student names. And so this just gives you a sample of what my substantive replies look like to students. Where here I'm trying to connect a couple students' ideas. Here, great examples. A student talks about clickbait and I, make a little joke. I hope none of my videos are clickbait. Relation to my own life, something my wife said. just shouting out a student with the @ function in Canvas, posing another question, okay, of directness and indirectness, which again, this is all subject matter. Like, this is what we're learning about in this lesson, okay? So I'm coming in here throughout the week, right? I'm referring them back to previous pages in the course and say, hey, that's a great connection to what we talked about 3 weeks ago. Click this link to see it. And that's what I love about online teaching, is I can't really do that as effectively in a face-to-face classroom. So, and so on and so forth. I jump in there and I try to reply to as many students as possible, and also make sure that I spread myself across different students who maybe I haven't responded to in a while. And this is a weekly thing. Every week I come in multiple times a week, check on who's posting, check on who hasn't had a response, and I jump in there and I give them a response. Again, if this is not something that you currently make a habit, take it from my experience, where these practices, these 5 things that I put at the bottom, has significantly improved the student posts and responses to each other in my classes in a way that I haven't seen in previous years of online teaching. Okay, so that they notice our extra effort and they put in extra effort with each other. So let me give you some key takeaways, then I'm going to stop the recording for questions. Substantive interaction is nothing new. It is not new. It's something that many of us already do, but we must continue to do it consistently and get that student feedback to see how we are doing with it. Listen to the students. We should strive for developed or highly developed ratings on the rubric criteria, frankly, because that's who we are. Okay, that is who we are, and I say that, you know, with love and genuine affection for all of our online instructors at the college who I've had the pleasure to work with over the past 5 years in this role as online coordinator. For now, I believe we should focus our substantive interaction efforts on the tools available within Canvas, because that is most easily viewable by our accreditors. Now, I know there are other softwares out there, Discord, WhatsApp, Remind.com, right? But if it is not visible when the accreditation team comes to visit us, then they might not be able to find it. And I'll leave you with this, substantive interaction is only the first part of this requirement. The second part is regular interaction. And that brings me to the upcoming workshop on regular interaction in online courses, which is going to take place after spring break on Tuesday, April the 8th, at this same time slot. And I hope to see many of you there, where we get to see the other side of this equation. And with that, I am going to I'm going to stop the recording and take some questions. I see some in the chat, and I do appreciate every single one of you being here, and those of you who are tuning in a little bit later in the recording. Thank you for your work. Let me know if you have questions or comments, and I appreciate your time. Have a great day.